The first of the four talks that we're going to have is going to be by Lucas Potter and Xavier Palmer, two BioSummit co-organizers who are doing amazing work on BioCyberSecurity. And so I think you guys are both in Norfolk, Virginia. Is that right?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So why don't you, I'll just, let you go ahead and if you want to give a little description about your project and also introduce yourselves, that would be great. So all you've got 15 minutes.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Xavier-Lewis Palmer, and I'm here with my colleague, Lucas Potter. We represent BioSView Labs, and we're here to talk about BioCyberSecurity. Next slide.
Okay. So I am a human factors engineer, or have been in the past, and I have worked in UX. This presentation will look very, very bland to almost all of you. There is a reason for that. After we had some experiences yesterday finding out that people weren't having the best connections, we figured it was easier just to make something everyone could look at the same way and use the same way. We do usually make stuff better than this in person, but we're not in person, and we're doing the best we can with what we have.
Yes, that said, as far as the who, what, when, where, and why, we're two electrical and computer engineering PhD candidates with a biomedical engineering concentration. We focus on problems and applications in biocybersecurity, also known as cyber-biosecurity. We use BCS to emphasize the biology. When? Well, we've been writing and chatting about it for a while, since like 2018, after reading on some cool discoveries in tech in the field, but we officially started to publish in 2020. We're from Old Dominion University, which is located in Norfolk, Virginia. And why? Well, the field is novel and has potential to upgrade society, or accelerate the descent into dystopia, or some weird amalgam, which would be frustrating. Next slide. So biocybersecurity / cyber-biosecurity is a hybrid discipline between cybersecurity, cyber-physical security, and biosecurity. It's expanding as the field opens. It applies to industrial agriculture, healthcare, personal electronics, genetic databases, and more. It's best approached with some knowledge in each area, within a pursuer or within a team. It's good to have experts in different areas. So the rest of this talk assumes that you're sufficiently knowledgeable about community bio and are sufficiently responsible to make use of this data. Next slide. So why should you care about biocybersecurity and biohacking? Well, biotech and bioengineering workflows are cyber-physical. Healthcare and industrial biotech, for example, is vulnerable to attacks at these cyber-physical interfaces. And these vulnerabilities, of course, will carry national security implications.
Any specific kind of key it could be.
But further, the tools to work in either are effectively becoming increasingly accessible. Being involved with each makes you more well-rounded, marketable, and knowledgeable about what is possible and where policy may be headed with respect to healthcare and related emergencies. Think COVID testing and more. Now, they are also both profitable, and they show increasing promise scaled with the intertwining of biological and cyber systems. Next slide. So for some unique and demonstrated threats, in 2017, team of Dr. Peter Ney, what they did is they had created a synthetic DNA with encoded malware that was used to successfully compromise a gene sequencing unit through remote code execution after DNA was processed. The team of Dr. Yisrael Mirsky created a deep learning enhanced malware, which is able to give false negatives and false positives in real time. And these images created were capable of tricking radiologists. And Dr. Ney, again, 2020, he's shown how teams could take third-party genealogy websites, scrape it for data from relatives, but also create false relatives. Now, there are some other potential threats as well, which may be in the future. Oh, can you go back?
Yeah, sorry.
So the idea of maybe in the future, epigenetic logic bombs, healthcare DDoSing, intra-implant surveillance, and a multiplication of attack vectors like via drones, mosquitoes, or other means. Next slide.
All right, guys, so I'll take it over from here. So we've talked a lot about the really cool ideas of biocybersecurity. Well, not so much cool. The fascinating ones that make you, oh yeah, it's really weird that I didn't know you could do that. Here are the more common ones that I've kind of brought up tangentially in other sessions so far. For instance, farming. So everyone kind of knows that if you see a login page, you put your stuff in and all of a sudden nothing happens, there's a good chance someone just got your data because you submitted it accidentally to the wrong person or basically to a false screen. That's going to be increasingly important here, especially if we go with open source clearances like Clear, because there's nothing stopping a person from saying, okay, well, let me set up my own IRB or quasi IRB and just collect your data and saying that, yeah, I'll give you your feedback and just take your information. There's also stuff like phishing. For instance, that was one of the things I brought up when attending this conference, was that we posted a lot of personal information online, and there was very little to prevent someone from looking at that data and going, okay, well, let me see if I can just take this data and try to get someone's information from it. There's also dirty biology, which is more like industrial espionage and hopefully not as applicable to community bio as you would think, like contaminated shipments of arrival. And that's really only going to affect you if you're, let's say, having a healthcare innovation and there's a healthcare company down the road who doesn't like you doing that. Another thing that's becoming more and more relevant is human interfaces of biological technology. So for instance, that's stuff like fingerprint scanners or Fitbits, things that take a lot of biodata and you don't really think about how secure they are. They're not very secure, if you're wondering. One resource we've also been looking at is resource queues, which is basically using a overused resource, like let's say Facebook or just personal data off Amazon, and using it for a hostile action. For instance, you probably don't think about, let's say you have a comorbidity, you have asthma or something. You go on Amazon, you buy something that people with asthma would have. And that gives you an insane amount of information about other people like that. For instance, another example would be diabetes. If you have let's say you're a hostile actor, you have a disease or biological agent that harms people with diabetes more than anyone else. To find how to target those people, you go on Amazon, buy test strips, and just have Amazon give you all those like great ideas that other people buy that fit your exact demographics. Okay, here's our threat categorization or characterization. The problem with BCS, especially as our first paper was defining it, which gives you a bit of context for how difficult this is to define, we had to devote a whole paper to it, is that there's human, biological, and cyber threats. The threats we define as human are basically ones that existed before biocybersecurity became a thing. For instance, you can be intimidated or bribed or have a user error. Those are all threats that happen, and biocybersecurity doesn't really deal with them. They're just kind of there. Biological threats are ones that surgically target the aspects of biology. For instance, they target your fingerprint scanner, or they target your assay that you're doing, or even the DNA scanner or PCR machines. Cyber threats are the ones that you're probably aware of and probably not handling very well, because no one really does, especially with password reuse. So that's our 3 categories of threats, and that's how we think they'll intersect to form biocybersecurity. Now, the first time we presented on this at the Bio Summit was last year, and we had a war game. The feedback we got was that it was useful if you knew a lot about biocybersecurity, and if you didn't, it just left you completely lost. It was kind of like reading the Dune series, but starting at the 4th book. It just confuses the crap out of you, and you have no idea what's going on. So in that case, we took our ideas for making a war game that showed you why biocybersecurity was important, and added more of the stuff that made it more accessible and could make you more interested in the topic. So for that, we made our own board game, and we'll be doing that tomorrow at 2 p.m., I think. So here we'd like to stop for questions and references, and that's it. I hope we're under time. Yeah, we are.
Excellent.
Yes, significantly under time, but plenty of time for questions.
Great. So here we go. I'll stop my screen sharing thing. There we go. Yeah.
Great, so we've got 5 minutes for Q&A. Thank you, Amanda. Does anyone want to ask a question, or maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the game? That's something I'm super interested in.
Awesome, yeah, sure. So let me share my screen again, because I have a slide that just summarizes it real quick. Do you guys see this, or? Okay, cool. So who here has played the board game War, or not board game, the card game War? Everyone? Okay, hopefully it's pretty common. The idea is that you have 2 decks, or 2 decks of cards. Each person plays a card at the same time, and the higher valued person card takes both cards. There's some rules if you tie, but really that's it. The idea is you have to give just enough to take their card, but not enough to ruin your chance of taking it in the future, or in the next turn. How we did this board game was we basically made multivariate war, where there's bio threats, there are cyber threats, and there's human threats. So you play 3 cards, each one plays at the same time. There's 2 roles, attackers and defenders, so your cards will be different. Whoever gets the most points wins 1 token, and the goal of the attacker is to either reduce your ability to do data, to do research, and the goal of the defender is to basically prevent them, identify the hacker or just prevent them from taking all of your research ability away, which is represented by just how many rounds you lose. There's 3 tiers, and that was basically meant to replicate the different levels of, I guess, different levels you probably work at in community bio. So there's like, the sole hacker who's kind of just the guy living in his mom's basement and the community bio lab. There's, all the way up to the big national labs and state-funded hacking groups. And you can kind of change who you are based on that. That really doesn't affect the gameplay except for how long the game's going to be, because it changes the amount of tokens you have. And yeah, for the board game extension we do tomorrow, we're going to do a guided play. So we'll show you how to play this with Xavier and I. We'll get 2 volunteers to play it. And then basically the rest of the time is just you playing a card game. Yeah, that's it. And if you're interested in that, we're collecting names for volunteers for beta testing and just if you want to expand on it. And that's something else to say, but I totally forgot what it was. Yeah, the board game itself is going to be distributed by an Excel spreadsheet because we are ex-engineers, and that's basically what our life is based around.
Indeed.
Awesome, thanks. Xavier, did you want to expand a little bit?
Oh, no, he pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, also, if anyone has any exciting ideas to share with us as far as like expanding what we work on, hey, we're down to collab. Just let us know.
Great. Great, we got a couple more minutes. Anyone else have another question? I'll ask one. I mean, I find games really engaging, and so I was wondering, like, the motivation behind, a game versus like more papers or a podcast or something. Why did you decide to design a game?
Well, you kind of answered the question yourself. It's more engaging. So when we did the board game last year, we were told, yeah, it's a really cool idea, but it doesn't get you involved in it. It doesn't get you interested in it. It's just kind of a really cool thought experiment to think about how you should secure your data and your personal facility. But games just really draw you in and hopefully will make you expand on what you're thinking about. So for instance, we have stuff like, if you are an attacker, you can play a game card where you purposefully take away the defender's shipment of biological data, which is interesting because, yeah, someone could totally just steal your Amazon package and you would never notice. That's a viable strategy if you want to reduce someone's data output. But that kind of thing didn't come up in the first board game. We were just, well, let's think about a really high-level strategy I could do to prevent you from doing research. And we kind of skipped the sillier, fun ones.
Indeed. Oh, yes. Eugene had a question. Lucas, can you go back to the unique threats page?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let me share this. Oh, hold on.
Yeah, I kind of see. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Full screen. And sure. Yeah, unique threats are definitely the more interesting ones, but I think we try to focus a bit more on the stuff you'd probably actually face. But unique threats are so cool, aren't they?
Indeed. All right, so yeah, these ones we also listed in our references, and we also can give the slides too. So one example, essentially a team, they made synthetic DNA, which encoded malware, and they used this to execute a remote attack on a sequencing unit. Then in 2019, team of Dr. Yisrael-Mirsky created a deep learning enhanced malware that was able to generate false CT scans in real time, make it look like someone had a particular disorder when they did not, by the presence of nodules, or make it seem like they did have something when they did not. And also in 2020, the team of Dr. Peter Ney, they essentially shown how you can take advantage of a third-party genealogy service and create either false relatives or scrape data from them. So let's say, for example, you're not giving your medical information, but they could probably look at your relatives and get an idea, if they're on that, to sort of like suss out what you might have. And then I also put some bonus but not impossible scenarios.
Right. Awesome. So I think that's our time.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you. Let's hear some snaps and applause for Xavier and Lucas. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Want to hear more? We're both on Slack. See ya.
Bye.